Welcome, geothermal students. Here we are, working in topic 6. Hopefully these topics are highlighted for you. A little blue highlight, whereas back in topic 5 now, we've moved it into topic 6. And we're going to look today at some different geothermal installations, the Newberry demonstration project, some geothermal residential systems. I got some input from Sean, one of our students, and he was saying, hey man, I want to build a house and install some geothermal, so I kind of moved up the clock as far as we'll still look at larger systems, but let's start to spend more time on actually looking at how you would install this at a local level in your backyard, in the open excavation of your house, your existing construction project, or come back and do an after project, or put it in afterwards. Which there's some tricks to it, so you don't tear tear up all your landscaping and stuff. But let's look at that here, the Newberry demonstration project. But one of the questions that has come to mind, Joe was just saying that in our last quiz, excuse me, like 5 smart geothermal test here. You can see this is going to close the 13th. So I'm going to keep track of this, and if I see that if there's people that are not being able to get it done, then I might disable this closure. But if you can get it done by the 13th, it'd be good. So if we take a look here at got this quiz from last week, the quiz on your smart geothermal. So do take a peek at that. Let me know how that works out. It has come to my attention that there is an issue with the gradebook as far as the weighted mean. So we're going to take a look and see with the IT guys on that. So don't worry if you end up with a mark of 88, and if it still says 100. So, but if you're not getting 100%, even though the marks are at 88%, because they're trying to balance the last page in the grade book. So I'll deal with that here in the next day or two. But hopefully you've been looking through your smart geothermal, and last week we didn't really get a chance to look at
Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can heal the world. Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can save the world.
looking pretty buddly for rope. I don't think they're gonna. I think this is just for rope.
It's legal in some of the countries to grow hemp for fiber, and in France, this woman whose name is France Perrier, Madame France Perrier, she builds about 300 houses a year using hemp and cement lime, and she makes a thing called isochanvre, and she mixes the lime with hemp herbs, the leftover parts of the hemp plant after the fiber's been extracted. And hemp does this amazing thing. It turns to stone, it petrifies. And so when you mix the lime and hemp herbs together, you get something stronger than cement at 1/6 the weight.
C'est-à-dire que dans un premier temps, j'ai cherché à pétrifier les végétaux, c'est-à-dire à minéraliser les sèves. Et puis ensuite, j'ai trouvé des archéologues qui m'ont dit avoir vu des sites mérovingiens et des sites égyptiens qui avaient été vraisemblablement faits de ces mêmes techniques.
Madame Perrier has had thousands of prospective orders for her houses from all over Europe. But like so many others, she is held back only by the restrictions on hemp production.
Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children.
Hi, my name is Clark Snell. I'm the managing director of the Now House Institute, which is a nonprofit dedicated to finding carbon neutral solutions for the built environment. What's the point of that? Basically, climate change.
So it looks like he has Chinese eyes, but you got to remember he's got hempcrete going here.
We are warming up the planet. That's the initial impetus, is going to be warmth, and then other things are going to happen. It is our fault, and it's our fault because humans' fault, because we are burning too many fossil fuels that put carbon into the atmosphere. It's pretty much that simple. So the solution is also very simple. We just need to stop burning fuels. The way we do that is becoming more efficient. So I'm standing in front of the Now House Institute's prototype carbon neutral building. One of the main components of this building is hempcrete. I'm standing in front of a hempcrete wall. What hempcrete is industrial hemp. The core of the stalk of an industrial hemp plant is called shiv. It's a woody fiber, and it's mixed with a lime-based binder to make an insulation material that you can build walls or roofs with. The reason that we're using it, and I think it's interesting in terms of the whole hemp debate, I think this is the best wall system in the world. So I'm all about hemp. I think hemp's an important thing to push because it's food, fiber, building material. But really, I'm choosing this material because it's the best in terms of building science. And why is that true? First of all, because this is what's often called a breathable wall system. And I don't mean breathable for air. We're actually building an airtight wall, but it's breathable for water. And why is that an advantage? Well, in a typical wall, you have a cavity that you seal tightly and then you fill with insulation. Well, water will get inside that cavity because water that's its job in the world. My body is 70% water. The surface of the planet, I think, is 70% water. It gets everywhere. It can climb uphill. It's through capillary action. It can dissolve any material. Anyway, so what we want to do in a building is create a wall that welcomes water but doesn't rot when it lets the water in, and that's exactly what hempcrete does. When humidity changes in the air outside, the wall can take on that extra humidity and hold it until the humidity drops outside, and then it will let it back out. In the meantime, because the lime is wrapped around the cellulose won't rot. So therefore, we have a wall that can adjust naturally to humidity levels without rotting. That means that this wall will last a very long time. It also means that indoor air quality is going to be much improved. Now we're on the inside of the building. We were talking about the breathable qualities of hempcrete. This is a hempcrete wall with a scratch coat of earth plaster. This is actually a plaster that we made on site with just clay, subsoil, and sand we mixed together. This is another great quality of a hempcrete wall, that we're able to plaster directly onto it without plywoods, drywalls, laths, drainage planes. It's simply the material itself, the insulation itself can be plastered. That saves us a lot of steps, a lot of time and money. And also it allows us to create this breathable wall I was talking about. So now we have the hempcrete interior, which is permeable to water vapor, as I was saying, and then we plaster it with either a lime or an earth plaster, which is also permeable. So then the surface, which is going to be, and the interior, of course, it's your protection against crayons and whatever else is happening inside, and the outside is protection against liquid water. Those things have the same permeability to water vapor as the hempcrete itself. So therefore, we're in the inside of the building. Let's say you're in a shower, or let's say that this is the kitchen, and there's water vapor in the air. The wall will take that on and hold it until the interior relative humidity goes down, and then it'll let it back out. So we basically are creating a stable interior relative humidity with a passive material, just with a wall material. So that's
And then the advantages we would think of as far as heat sink, as you have latent heat of evaporation and condensation, so that as things evaporate, they cool, and then so you're gaining or losing heat in that respect. So we're looking at heat storage in this wall system, and I hope he's going to mention the fact that it's a lot lighter. It gives the concrete, shall we say, a durability as far as it's a lighter material, but it also is more flexible, less tendency to crack and break.
Huge advantage of hempcrete is basically, in the simplest way of saying it, it's a healthier wall. So we said it's a longer lasting wall because it deals with water well. It's also a healthier wall because it deals with water well. Another advantage of hempcrete is that it's carbon sequestering. You remember before I said that our goal is to be carbon neutral. Well, hempcrete actually sequesters carbon. Let me tell you how it does that. First of all, any cellulose material, wood for example, or hemp, takes carbon in during its life cycle, and usually when it decays, it lets it back into the atmosphere. If you take that plant and then put it into a wall, for example in Hempcrete, then that carbon is now sequestered in the wall and not becoming part of climate change. So the Hempcrete in this building, this one building alone, will sequester 20,000 pounds of carbon. That's a pretty big accomplishment, and it's all thanks to Hempcrete. Hempcrete is part of the natural building world. What are natural materials? They're basically materials that are usually local or site harvested or have low embodied energy like Hempcrete does. They're also materials that work well with the site, and one thing that's great about Hempcrete is that you can create a strong wall of different thicknesses based on what your insulation needs are. That's because you use forms around some kind of other structure like wood that will hold up the roof, and then you form around that and put the Hempcrete in the cavity. So for example, in our house here, the Now House prototype, since we're trying to get to such high energy efficiency levels, we have a 16-inch thick wall to get us a performance rating of R40. We could also do a 10-inch wall. So we have flexibility in terms of the amount of insulation that we're going to use with the exact same procedure for construction. That's fairly unique in the world, and it's another reason why Hempcrete's a really great product.
Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can heal the world. Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can save the world.
At the top of Peach Knob, workers build a home for former Mayor Russ Martin, the first of its kind in the U.S.
Europe's been using this product for about 10 to 15 years, and they're pretty far ahead of us in green building.
The product is industrial hemp. Madeira's company imports it from the UK to make Hempcrete. Hempcrete is mixed with a lime-based binder. Before you make any jokes about workers getting high on the job, builders quickly point out that hemp is not marijuana.
The industrial hemp plant is a cousin of the marijuana plant, but it has very little, 0.03% THC. You can't get high on this.
Madeira says Hempcrete has many health and economic benefits. The material allows air and moisture to circulate, preventing the buildup of mold, mildew, and other issues.
With this product, you'll have no termites, no dry rot, no moisture issues, because the air is constantly moving in and out.
Yet it's also...
So I'm wondering, Joe, what other plants you might have down in your island that would combine and would, you know, petrify?
I wonder if palm fronds.
Yeah, like a palm frond perhaps.
We have lots of those.
Yeah, and it's a fibrous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well insulated. At first glance, the walls of the hemp house don't look too steady, but they are. In fact, they're about a foot thick, and builders say they should cut down homeowners' energy costs by at least half. The 3,000 square foot home cost about $55,000 to build. The home's designer says his inspiration is personal.
My daughter, she's 8 years old and autistic with multiple chemical and environmental sensitivities.
Brenner says little Bailey has seizures as a reaction to certain chemicals and materials found in traditional homes.
My goal as a designer is to try to find and locate products that I would feel and my wife would feel good about us having in our home that wouldn't have an adverse effect on her health.
Brenner and Madeira hope this is the beginning of many hemp houses in Asheville and in the U.S. Karen Wynn, News 13.
Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can heal the world. Imagine a world we could live in. Plant these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can save the world.
A few years ago I set up a company called HAB, Happiness Architecture Beauty, as a development company. And we're finishing this scheme in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. It's a scheme of about 42 homes called the Triangle, and designed by a wonderful award-winning British architect, Glenn Howells. My great difficulty is that every new scheme we're building 7 now, I look at the range of materials out there. I cannot find one to match hemp. I can't find one that has such a low embodied energy, that locks carbon in, that has such a low environmental impact, that can be grown locally and harvested with minimum inputs in a matter of just a few months. It's an incredibly expedient building method. Every other system I looked at involves...
If you take a look back here, you can see the convective gradient, the stacks that they've got set up here to cause draft, which if you couple that with the geothermal aspect, medium temperature, you can induce a draft through a subterranean earth berm, and then as these heat's created in the building, that convective gradient causes a draft, and so exit at the top, cold air comes in, or whatever temperature, hot air comes in and gets cooled, or as your temperature gradient increases here on a cold day, you draw in cool air and it brings that air up to medium temperature. So you kind of tend to neutralize it, you either heat it or cool it, and then you don't have to pump it because these stacks here, it's quite a nice design.
A skin and a structure and an insulation, and then you're worrying about where the thermal mass goes, and I cannot find a material which does what hemp does. And we made a television series about this project, and we went off and planted a...
You could see some of his thermal mass there too. Did you see the rock piles right here? See the stacks of rock? So I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but one of the applications I've designed, you would draw, your air daytime temperatures in over the rock and then draft into the house. The rock tends to cool off at night, so you're cooling the incoming air through the day. It's gaining heat, and then at night you just let that heat dissipate, so it tends to just neutralize your temperatures.
It involves a skin and a structure and an insulation, and then you're worrying about where the thermal mass goes, and I cannot find a material which does what hemp does. And we made a television series about this project, and we went off and planted a field of hemp, and over 12 or 14 weeks watched it grow to 4 meters tall. And that was next to a power station, which was rather neat. So, and the trains went by, and the motorway went by, and you saw the plumes of smoke coming out of the chimneys of the power station. You thought, this field of hemp is absorbing all the CO2 and dirt, and we're going to build houses with it. So for me, there's a tremendous excitement in the pioneering notion of using this material. The project manager here on site said to me, he loved the material because we could have this lorry reversing on site, a big cement mixing lorry. Instead of pouring out heavy, wet, toxic, caustic concrete, it would instead pour out this sort of fluffy, lightweight stuff that looks like sawdust. It didn't require any power tools. So all we had was buckets and barrows and blokes. And because there are no power tools, there are no cables everywhere. And it actually makes for a very, very healthy, very safe building site, hemp. It's a very, very builder-friendly material. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Imagine a world we could live in with these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can heal the world. Imagine a world we could live in with these seeds in the minds of our children. Plant these trees and grow a solution. Hemp can save the world.
So now we got a bunch of ads. But this is in your course, so if you'd like to look at in more detail, look at some of the advertisements here. Hemp can change the world. But that's just one building material that is going to be conducive to storing your geothermal gain, your heat gain from your geothermal heat pump.
Kenza Engineering have been manufacturing and installing ground source heat pumps since 1999. With over 2,500 complete systems manufactured so far, you can trust Kenza to deliver award-winning expertise and advice. In this video, you will learn how a ground source heat pump works. The purpose of a heat pump is to absorb low-grade heat in one place where it is plentiful, then to transport, concentrate and release it in another location where it can be used for space or water heating. The ground absorbs low-grade solar energy by means of direct sunlight and rain. This gives the ground a year-round temperature of around 8 to 12 degrees Celsius. But how can this low-grade heat be used to heat an entire building? A cold water antifreeze mix is pumped through the ground within a series of energy-absorbing pipes known as ground arrays. As heat naturally flows from warmer to cooler places, the antifreeze mix circulating around the array is constantly warmed by the ground's low-grade heat. Having increased in temperature, the antifreeze mixture is fed into a heat exchanger called the evaporator. Within the secondary sealed side of the evaporator heat exchanger is a refrigerant which acts as a heat transfer fluid. When the water antifreeze mixture enters the evaporator, the energy absorbed from the ground is transferred into the refrigerant, which begins to boil and turn into a gas. The refrigerant never physically mixes with the water antifreeze mixture. They are separated like sandwich layers by the plates of the heat exchanger, which permits the heat transfer. This gas is then fed into a compressor. The pressure of the refrigerant gas is increased in the compressor, which makes the gas temperature rise. The hot refrigerant gas then flows into a second heat exchanger called a condenser, which features an identical set of heat transfer plates. The condenser delivers water hot enough to serve the space heating system and, if required, the property's hot water needs. Having transferred its heat, the refrigerant gas reverts to a liquid. This liquid is then passed through an expansion valve at the end of the cycle to reduce its pressure and temperature, ready to commence the cycle all over again. Low-grade heat stored in the ground has been upgraded by the refrigeration process to deliver hot water. For each kilowatt consumed by the heat pump, 4 kilowatts of energy is generated, effectively meaning the cost per kilowatt hour is quartered. Plenty more information can be found on the company website or in other Kenza videos. Please also consider attending a one-day Kenza training course or utilize the e-learning installer training tool at www.kenzaengineering.com/training tool.
1 in, 4 out, or quartered. You can look for that in some of your quizzes. As far as some of the potential, there's even some newer techniques that they use in machinery that has an 8-to-1 ratio. Seems like it's against the laws of physics. But let's take a look at our geothermal in general.
Geothermal energy gives us a steady supply of electrical power with minimal environmental impact. Here is the basic process. Water in underground reservoirs is heated to high temperatures by magma. Production wells drilled up to 10,000 feet below the Earth's surface tap into this hot fluid. Under its own pressure, the fluid flows through these wells toward the surface.
Heat tends to rise, doesn't it? But it tends to cool off also as it goes up. One of the things I wanted to mention about the Kenza video that you just watched is that they mentioned they're closer to the surface, so they're not thinking about median temperature that is the essence of our experiment in median temperature. He's saying that it's a recovery from rain and sun, which is partially correct, but is.
As it travels, the pressure lessens, causing a small amount to become steam. Together, the hot fluid and steam move through a surface pipeline to a wellhead separator, where the pressure is reduced. Here, most of the fluid vaporizes and flashes into high-pressure steam.
So pressure differentials are real important in all of these different applications, residential and large scale. So latent heat of evaporation and condensation are important features of important physics.
Any fluid not flashed into steam moves to a standard pressure crystallizer to produce standard pressure steam. Remaining fluid is then flashed at a lower pressure to create low pressure steam. All steam created in the plant is sent to a turbine on site. The force of the steam spins the turbine's blades, which turns a shaft connected to an electrical generator. An electrical charge is created and directed to a transformer, where the voltage is increased and sent down power lines. Any fluids not flashed into steam return to the underground reservoir, where, in time, they will be reheated and reused. Geothermal energy, a simple, clean, and renewable energy source.